We are live. This is the market update. Should you worry? Geopolitical headlines, domestic political headlines. Is there a conflict on the horizon? Earlier today, I would have said no. Then late in the day, June 11th, my understanding is the U.S. is clearing out embassies in the Middle East. Wow. That's not small potatoes. Now, a lot of geopolitical kind of like influencer guys have been like, well, it's going to happen. And I'm like, you're crazy. Now it actually feels like it is happening. Here's the good news. One, crypto is not down that much. Two, oil is up but hasn't gone parabolic. Obviously, if oil starts creeping up 5-10% at a time, then you know you have a problem because nobody has better intelligence than oil companies. Is this going to be a problem for crypto? Well, it'll be a problem for stocks, probably for risk assets, right? All coins got hit today, but I get the sense that whatever's going to go on here is going to be the juicy dip. Like, for example, let's say Bitcoin goes to 104, right? Everybody got super bullish. Everyone's looking for a big breakout. Terrific. They're probably going to get one after they get stopped out. This happens all the time. Leverage players FOMOing in, and then boom, they wash people out. Is that possible? Yes. Did it happen today? Yes. Now, let's talk about long term. If the world is actually insane enough to start this conflict in the Middle East, right? These characters who are fighting, one group already has the weapons and the capability. They're trying to get them to give up. They already have it. So I don't know what the point of us getting involved in is unless the party that we're traditionally allied with goes anyway and forces the issue. To me, that was a joke before today, and now that is no longer a joke. Net in crypto, I think you got to be in dip mode. You have to assume this is a trade and not the end of days. If it is end of day, or not end of days, if it is a conflict, you'll probably have oil at 100 in a hurry. And I continue to believe that the most vulnerable group would be Stonks, right? Because everybody was assuming everything was fine, and you have to scale your way into the AI trade, which makes sense. And then boom, which has been par for the course with them all year. We will break down the crypto charts. We will show you the resistance. We will find the support and get everyone sorted out. Okay. Indie Rock Crypto is here. Welcome. Welcome. We have Bull Runner, Felix, Gavin Busby, Fuzz Crypto. Yav is here. Felix. DGen Joe, a member for 6 months. Welcome, one of the Spartans. Pancakes and Peanut Butter. Bunker Down. Cat D, Lee J, Iron Alien. Welcome. I'm not Bruce or Cliff. Good evening. Right? David is here. What's up? Javier is in the house. We are rolling. Now, as always, we're going to break this geopolitical thing down. I'm sure you're hearing a lot, but we're going to start with Stonks. So this is a lot of legacy-based jargon, but there's a lot of resistance in the S&P at 6,000. And as I've noted, they are very twisted up in stocks, right? They don't know if they should buy. They were selling the low and buying the high for sure. And now they have a geopolitical conflict out of nowhere. I think if there was ever a conflict, all these late buyers would immediately puke it out, right? And this particular guy, he was a buyer in 2009 at 666, and he wants to sell S&P at 6,066. S&P right now is roughly at 6,000. he makes a very interesting point. So this guy used to be considered by most people as kind of a wacko. I don't think so anymore. You know, he wound up correct about the people coming into the country based on the recent round of social disorder. Now we're evacuating embassies. And he was talking about this last night. And I was like, dude, you're crazy. You know, the orange man's not going to support this. Or is he? Right? Meaning this is about the conflict in the Middle East and the fact that it was going to happen anyway. Okay, so this is what they put out there. You know, U.S. on high alert for potential of blue and white strike on the Iranians. Okay, now for some additional context, right? President Trump hosts Camp David meeting on Iran with major military leaders. I didn't know that. After that, President Trump speaks with the Israeli Prime Minister, who convenes a special Security Council meeting. Share screen. President Trump hosts Camp David meeting. After President Trump speaks with Israel. Okay. Maritime warning for anybody in the Strait of Hormuz and Persian Gulf. U.S. issues an order evacuating the American embassy in Iraq, non-essential staff and family members at embassies in Bahrain and Kuwait as well. 2-month deadline for the end of talks, etc. Again, this guy's been hot. He was right on the social disorder. And I'm like, oh my God. All this came out and he's like, yeah, I tried to tell you. Tried to tell you that basically the guys in blue and white are going anyway. And they can't do this without us. They can't. So we say we're not helping them, but if it actually happens, well, we are. Now, my hope is that this is posturing to get a deal done. Even though evacuating an embassy is pretty freaking serious. That's pretty freaking serious. Hopefully it's posturing to get a deal done. Now, if it's not, I think as I talk it out, you're just going to have a wick down, right? It'll happen. It'll wick down. And if it doesn't turn into a calamity, it'll be a dip buying opportunity. I don't know. I don't know if Bitcoin can go all the way back down to 104, but then again, I never thought it would go to 77. And I think, again, unless oil goes to 100, it's Christmas in ETH and Solana because they were on the verge of a breakout and they're still going to break out. It's just a question of what kind of flush you get. Now, as a reminder, you know, not to be a smart A with them evacuating embassies, but it has not paid to get bearish on any of these geopolitical headlines for 4 years. Literally, for 4 years, it has not paid. Now, frankly, if Israel just turn around and does it anyway, you don't know what can happen after that. You know, the social disorder is a little weird. This, to me, feels like absolute insanity. I mean, it feels like no one wants it. Like, I know we don't want it. And I don't think the Iranians want it either. Like, they could rebuild, but why would they want this to happen? That's just me. But again, you get the dip here, I say take advantage. Even if it's scary, because every dip is scary. Now, who knows how scary this can be. Meanwhile, CPI came in lower. Core CPI was lower than all 73 forecasters. A reminder that everyone's read on the tariffs was dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. Everyone thought the tariffs were inflationary, particularly the opposition party with Trump. Everybody thought inflation was going to 10%, and tariffs dampened demand. The labor market is, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's completely silent, meaning there's no hiring going on. So if you have no labor market pressure and you have a demand dent from tariffs, you don't have inflation. which means the Fed should be in there cutting if they can get this government spending thing in order. Part of what really scares me about this geopolitical situation is that it gets used as an excuse to indiscriminately to spend on things like defense. I know defense always goes up, but to me, it's the secondary risks from this conflict, right? I mean, it's off the deep end, but to me, this all feels like posturing to get the big, beautiful bill done. It's like, yeah, let's evacuate a couple of embassies, see if we can scare everybody into passing our budget. I mean, I can't believe that's what it would be, but that raises enough of a question to make me not want to like panic and just completely get out of crypto. If anything, it makes me want to like get involved on the dip, right? You had euphoria at 110. You have support at 104. If that's what happens, it feels like a wick, if anything. Okay, U.S. intelligence concerned. Israel's going to do it. Now, my counter with this is that announced wars don't happen. However, it wasn't announced that we're evacuating embassies. Like I said, that creates, that's worthy of a thumbnail. Let's put it that way in YouTube terms. Because if people go searching for this, they're going to be like, okay, what happens if this goes down? I say it's a wick and a comeback. Because, like I said, if it was a disaster or it was going to be a disaster, oil would be at 80 or 100, right? If it was really going to happen, it still can happen. Like, I said the thing in Los Angeles was like the Instagram riots. It spread, right? It spread. So you got to be careful. I got to be careful about not blowing stuff off. Okay, Israel preparing, according to television. Last I heard, if you were going to attack somebody, particularly from a long distance, you didn't announce it before you did it. That's just me. Okay, oil. So crude oil, frankly, some of the LuxAlgo signals like this little triangle, right, and this X, it feels more like a top. Feels more like a top to me, but it is taking out the 200-day moving average, and they do have room, right? They got room. Now, if you want to know, like, if something happened, like where and when you would buy crypto, the premium zone in oil is at 80. So if this is like some kind of, because a lot of the exchanges between these countries have been like, theater. I mean, things blow up and people get hurt, but it's like, okay, I'll empty out a building and you blow up this building. And then I'll empty out a building and then you blow up that building. And we go back and forth and then everyone stops. Then, the guy who doesn't shoot at the end is a heroic hero for peace. This has been going on for a while, right? Like first it was Elon and Trump fighting, which again, you show weakness, you get problems, right? If you want to know how all this got started, the House was divided, whether it was pro wrestling or not. Then what'd you get out of that? Right? Both Elon and Mr. Trump are responsible for that. Two people don't get along. It's the fault of both parties. You show weakness, you get the left on the streets, and you get the guys in the Middle East taking advantage. You can't show weakness when you're at the top of the food chain. Like when you're the head gorilla or you're the head lion, someone challenges you and you show weakness, you're going to have everyone challenging you. And that's exactly what happened. Now, again, oil tops, great. Oil goes to 80. That's your dip. Federal Reserve should cut interest rates by 100 basis points. This is not the way to get a 100 basis point rate cut. The way to get a 100 basis point rate cut is to control government spending. Now, Powell is not on his side and will never be. Never. Right? Like, core CPI is fine. They still won't touch it. They left rates at 0 while inflation was rampaging. They're not on your side. And this goes back to, if they give you some kind of an event, right? Like if these governments can't be responsible, they can't be responsible and they can't They can't not shoot at each other when that makes absolutely no sense at all. I mean, I understand the threat to Israel, but they've got the weapons already. They've got the capability. You're not going to not have them have the capability. It's not 10 years ago. Meanwhile, again, crypto news getting buried by other stories. Isn't it amazing about how when they all soiled the bed over the big, beautiful bill, that now they're in a hurry to not only pass the Stablecoin Act, but there's a guy out on the floor of Congress going, yeah, you know, we want crypto for everybody. And what he means is we want crypto for banks because banks want to get involved in DeFi because governments have just behaved so badly. They're like, oh, yeah, we can make money in this now. It's like we can't beat them, so we're going to join them. Literally, that's what's happening. Look, Congress is codifying some spending cuts. It's amazing what can happen when, you know, things get a little awry and it gets out of hand, right? You have a little social disorder. We don't want Elon mouthing off anymore. We don't. Because bad things have happened. They both, especially him, he has to live with this. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he, you know, kind of like threw a cheap shot at Trump and that got a series of events started where people took advantage of his weakness. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin treasury companies. So it seems to be consensus that, you know, everybody should be a Bitcoin treasury company, and they probably should. Any treasury should have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I don't know if everybody should be a Bitcoin hedge fund like Saylor, but this grumpy guy particularly thinks that Bitcoin treasury companies are a speculative attack on the dollar. Using Saylor's number that inflation is running 15%, when you include asset inflation, interest rates should go much higher. Acquiring one-way up Bitcoin with this ridiculous cheap money is a mathematically guaranteed way to outperform everything. At some point, the rush into Bitcoin will crash the bond markets. Rates will skyrocket and the music will stop. Now, everybody has their debacle theory, right? There's always a debacle theory. There's never a theory about the dollar organically going lower using Bitcoin and Ethereum. If Bitcoin goes up, the bond market will crash. Dude, if Bitcoin goes up that much, they'll be issuing bonds backed by Bitcoin or bonds that pay interest in Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know there's this huge alarmist crowd around Saylor and what he's doing. If there is an alarmist crowd, remember, the innovator, Saylor, the imitator, Metaplanet, Galaxy Digital, then you have to watch out for the idiots. I don't know that we've seen the idiots yet. Some people are going to say the GameStop guy is the first idiot in. Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe. Silicon Valley has not gotten involved yet, and I think either them or the government is going to buy the top because, again, no one wants it on a dip, right? It's like every time it goes down, everyone walks away and goes, oh, my God, I can't touch it. Negative news. Okay. Now, on the flip side, headed into this, you do have some signs of euphoria, right? So in the last cycle, there will be no top. That's what Willy Woo wrote in October of 2021. And then, of course, it topped. Now he's saying, looking at the new chart, I think I posted this one cycle too early, meaning there will be no top. Now, on this note, I do have something new in Patreon Platinum. It's an absolute radical Gann analysis using the American Revolutionary War. Okay. The bold Bitcoin revolution. The social disorder in the United States goes back to the Revolutionary War. This forecast gives you one date backed by serious Gann math where the Bitcoin parabolic starts. If you go to the Patreon and hit collections, you get all this research for $88 a month. And I have some of these things in the Patreon store, but not this bold Gann idea. Imagine if you could tell somebody, especially during a dip, the day it probably goes parabolic. Like the thing everyone's talking about now, actually, when it happens. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And some of these events basically demonstrate nothing more than governments behaving badly. So even if it does go down, it's like, is it going to create a crypto crash? It could create a crypto dip. And, Toby Ward in the YouTube member area tomorrow, we're going to be going over, the dates that we want to buy the most recent 10 small caps that we like. So assuming we're waking up tomorrow and if oil's not at 100, we're going to carry on a dip, just so you know, right? And if they want to give you a flash crash, that's classic, right? Willy Woo says it's never going to top. He's a Bitcoin enthusiastic guy. Everything looks terrific. And then, boom, they flash it down. And we talked a little bit about, a correction in Solana, but we'll talk more about it. Because, again, if the world doesn't end, it's an opportunity. Even if it is a huge move down, I think the characters in equities are more vulnerable. I actually heard a rumor. I actually saw it on Instagram. I don't know if it's true or not. Just as an aside, I heard ChatGPT lost to a 1979 Atari video game in chess. Don't know if that's true or not. Okay, MicroStrategy has generated a huge amount of money with Bitcoin. MicroStrategy says we will never see winter again. I don't like hyperbole, right? Now, you may never see winter again, but like AI agents have been in a winter for 6 months. And if you don't get winter, you might get a flash event. And if you get a flash event, you have to be there, right? I mean, you'll know if you can't touch it. You'll know if it's a mess. I mean, there's something on the site, right? Like I started doing this, it's a little bit, it's a little bit tongue in cheek. It's called Wall Street Stories, right? There's what happened in the .com era and what happened in the Gulf War. I was an intern during the Gulf War, August 1990, and oil went from 30 to 60 when Saddam invaded Kuwait. Boom, that's how fast it happened. Now, if that happens in oil and you wake up, well, then you don't touch anything. But if that doesn't happen, if oil doesn't go to 80 or beyond 80, then you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is kind of juicy. Because trust me, if you bought stocks, if you bought risk assets after that invasion in 1990, eventually it turned around and recovered sharply. Right? Okay, so now we have more imitators, hopefully not idiots. Right? Remix announces, Japanese companies following Metaplanet. Okay, now I thought this was funny this morning, sort of. Now I don't think it's funny at all. At all. First, they launch on the Russians, deep inside Russian territory when they're allegedly trying to make peace. Now they're trying to suck up to everybody by doing a Bitcoin strategic reserve at 110. At 77, they didn't want it, but at 110, it's much more attractive. It's like orchestrated PR. Like, this is A, not funny, and B, makes me want to believe nothing of what they're telling you. Toby says this on the YouTube member live stream. If they're trying to make you afraid, they're trying to control you. And the whole objective of crypto is to not be controlled. So, I lay out the case, and again, we'll go through it, right? Evacuating embassies, serious. Okay. Unless it's a disaster, it's an opportunity. Billionaire Tudor Jones says we need Bitcoin to fight inflation. Okay, well, inflation's over, but we need Bitcoin because the dollar has to go down. No one will say it. I don't understand why no one will say it. The only way to get the dollar lower at the speed it needs to go lower is crypto. Now, again, on groupthink, right? POTUS, critics of the president, said, oh my God, if you do such and such to the IRS, we'll make less money. Tax receipts were up 9.5% over the previous year, and receipts were up 14.7%. Remarkably, whatever they did with the Internal Revenue Service and eliminating waste did not affect the ability for Uncle Sugar to collect taxes. Remember the tariffs, right? It was all over. It was a disaster. This was earlier this morning. Oh, trade deal with China. Yeah, right after big Hong Kong pension funds said, if you guys lose your credit rating, we're selling all of our treasuries. Trade deal done 3 days later. Whoop. There you go. You know what I'm saying? Like Orange Man, he effed around and he found out with China and the treasuries and rare earth metals and all that. The groupthink on tariffs was wrong. The groupthink on the spending cuts was wrong. Dividing the house at the top and showing weakness was wrong. Everybody thought that was very funny and entertaining. Grab your popcorn. Ask anybody that owns like a convenience store in Los Angeles how well that worked out for the small guy. Now, if you're wondering why Congress is all of a sudden interested in passing crypto legislation, it's because the banks want in. The banks want in, right? Now, I don't know what exchange is going to carry Bank of America coin, but I guess, I guess the big ones will, right? They all want their own stable coin now. Now, of course, that also creates demand for treasuries. But again, if you're wondering why Congress wants it, it's because the banks want it. Look at this handsome fellow. This is what visionary leadership looks like. Yeah, let's get on the stablecoin train after Circle IPO triples. The banks want it. Now, Cynthia has been fighting a good fight on her own, and she's getting help from Mr. Handsome here because of the banks. Treasury Secretary Bessent posts what I think is an honest statement saying that, if we can't get this debt ceiling thing done, if they can't get the optics about the debt corrected, there could be an event. They've already had an event. They had social disorder, and now you have war. You show weakness, this is what you get. America is, I don't know, you can say it however you want to say it. The world's cop, the Roman Empire, you call it what you want to call it. You show weakness in the jungle, you get challenged by everybody, right? They'll never make this mistake again. I mean, there's not that many Elon Trump World Wrestling Federation, conflicts. This can never happen again. Never. Even with Powell. He can cry all he wants about Powell. They do this again. They show weakness. 46 cents of every dollar the federal government spent in May was borrowed. So again, we know this, right? This was going on under Brandon. They were doing $1 trillion a month. They were doing $1 trillion every 5 months. Now, I also happen to put something in Patreon in the 6th Street Crypto podcast area about how much QE the Fed did during the riots in 2020. Little perplexity action there. I was like, wow. I mean, of course, that was a different era in the middle of all kinds of other problems. But, that still was Jerome Powell. So don't doubt central bank response if things get ugly, right? Just because he won't cut rates, that doesn't mean he's going to let the whole system come unglued. He's not. And there's no way out of a lot of problems other than printing, and he knows it. And he knows it. Commerce Secretary Lutnick says so many trade deals are coming. Notice how this guy has been ripped off the tape. Thank God. Right? Like every time this guy talks, even though he's a very successful businessman, they should probably just put like a Bitcoin on his face. It's just as a reminder. I mean, he's like making fun of himself in a way, and his company just can't buy enough. Why? Because he knows how the sausage is made. He knows how the sausage is made. Now, some euphoria in ETH, right? I liked it better when everyone was negative. Okay, ETH reclaims $345 billion market cap. Okay, Ondo debuts on XRP Ledger. Okay, everyone's out there dying for that XRP content, right? Because everyone's looking for XRP news and there isn't any, which is in itself mind-boggling. Okay, treasuries, stable coins, tokenized assets are a theme that, again, we have GAN work that's going to be going in Patreon Platinum about, when you want to get involved in certain sectors. That's coming soon. Probably going to talk about that tomorrow on the YouTube member podcast, which is on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Real world assets is going to be a massive theme. And if they get some disruption, the more fear you have in the market, the more scares you have, the faster and harder banks are going to move towards RWA and DeFi, and that is not priced in. You had a nice rally in Aave, and that's it. That's it, right? So Senate doing stable coins, House doing market structure. Remember this? Coinbase is worried that they won't be able to get 2 bills through Congress. We're going to get 2 bills through Congress. You know why? Because Congress is so inept that if they don't do something, the rage, particularly if there's some kind of wild geopolitical black swan, right? Congress has to do something to have an accomplishment. Like, what have these characters gotten done? No Bitcoin strategic reserve, no sovereign wealth fund, social disorder, Middle East conflict, tariff fiasco. What exactly has gone on in Washington that has A, been competent, or B, benefited anybody? I mean, I hate to say this, but it's been essentially, it's a more entertaining, more confident version of the same things that happened under Brandon. And the only way to get that to change is to do crypto, which they're doing to their credit, because they know they got an election coming up in the near future. Note to self, Silicon Valley wants in on everything. They're panicking in AI, right? The FOMO is unbelievable. Everything I said the last 2 days about their FOMO increasing valuation is going to cushion the market from anything other than some all-out black swan. And black swans usually are not announced like this one. Silicon Valley will FOMO into stablecoins, which could result in a huge purchase price for a certain company, okay, which is covered in the Patreon Platinum area, okay? We actually have the price forecasts for your favorite coin and a scenario for whether or not you start a takeover battle across crypto. A massively underrated theme. Everyone's talking about Bitcoin treasury companies. I think that's really interesting. After the treasury companies get done buying it, okay, the question is, how are people going to get their hands on massive amounts of Bitcoin come the big GAN parabolic date? Right? It's like, okay, well, now it's like a dozen headlines about small potatoes. What happens when it becomes big potatoes or Silicon Valley or some kind of gigantic move? How soon do you think that's going to be here? And if there's a geopolitical event, you get on it. Okay, so Paul Tudor Jones says debt problem equals Bitcoin. Wow, dude. Satoshi Nakamoto was on that trade in 2009. And not that I'm dissing Tudor, because I happen to like him. He called 87. That's how he got famous and traded it. Okay, so Tom Lee Mulls, Semler Scientific, right? Bitcoin Treasury Company's market cap has tumbled below the value of its Bitcoin holdings. Companies that are in trouble who are buying Bitcoin are not necessarily getting their way out of trouble. That's very interesting. Like, Bitcoin on your balance sheet does not make you Michael Saylor. Maybe perhaps this is the beginning of the idiot phase. I don't know. I don't think so. I think you're going to see the idiot phase, believe it or not, later on with bigger players FOMOing in at absurd prices just because they think it's going to go to 800,000. Okay. Sweden's group rallies another 30% after just getting 10 million for Bitcoin Treasury. So if your company has a pulse and you get Bitcoin going, you're an imitator. Okay. XRP's got an Ethereum-compatible sidechain from my guy, Omar. Now, to be honest, this is a good example of XRP news. It's also an example about how the only thing going on YouTube are people looking for things about XRP. Everyone else has left. People in Bitcoin don't need to look at YouTube, honestly. The people who are on YouTube who are looking for stuff is XRP. And then all this, like, I don't know, small XRP news starts rolling out because it's tough to find content demand. My angle on XRP is that it's been above the 200-day moving average for 4 days. And even if it dips, a dip to the 200-day moving average would be juicy. We'll go over that chart later. But you can't get anyone interested in crypto unless you talk about XRP, to just be honest. To be honest. Okay, Bitcoin miners now following Michael Saylor. I think this makes all the sense in the world, right? Assuming Tether and their like open source Bitcoin mining doesn't blow away the whole industry, Bitcoin miners will get taken over. They will get taken over. You're not going to be able to buy Bitcoin once Michael Saylor takes it from whoever is selling. So you're not going to be able to trade the coin. You're going to have to trade the companies that have the coin. ChatGPT is eating the internet. They have 80% of the AI market. I started with Google's Gemini last night. You know, personally, I have my little mix of what AI is good at what. It is also amazing how guys in the equity market who are still super pro AI and still want to do that trade as the biggest investment theme they've ever seen, and they want to get long any way they can, which would be on a geopolitical dip, right? You know, it's amazing how much guff they're taking. It's amazing how much FUD is still out there. I mean, again, I don't know if ChatGPT actually did lose to Atari in chess, but what I can tell you about AI, and I don't say this often, but both me and the Eagle King know what it was like running this channel 3 years ago, right? In other words, no editing. Somebody had to generate the thumbnails at hundreds of dollars a month. We couldn't get my face on the thumbnails. We couldn't do any of the stuff that YouTube wants you to do. We had no idea what titles to use. There were no premium. There was no premium research. There was no Patreon, right? Because that requires art, thumbnails, editing. Okay, my life story aside, this thing has been a force multiplier for me personally, and I would imagine it is that way for a lot of other people. Because you know what? I want to do the prosperity trade. Now, that said, fear of Skynet, which I make probably too many jokes about, fear of Skynet, the assumption that Skynet is here should be questioned because it's groupthink, right? Everyone thinks that robots and Skynet are coming and, you know, that's not here yet if they can't beat Atari and chess. So use what's good. And I still think somewhere in here, there could be a small player that goes, hey, wait a minute. I can figure out how to beat Atari at chess. And that could be in the decentralized world. Because regardless of who's right, the skeptics or the FOMOers in AI, a decentralized solution for the people, especially when something scary happens, right? Like no one's interested in privacy until you get scared. No one's interested in security until there's a riot. You follow what I'm saying? You got to do it before, like McAfee. Bitcoin price prepares for volatility as spot supply vanishes. New Bitcoin treasuries may crack under price pressure. Okay, so there's too many dip buyers, frankly, at this point. And you worry when they say Bitcoin treasury companies are going up forever. Everyone who's not a Bitcoin treasury company is going to zero. If they're worried about Saylor, like Jordan Peterson was like, doesn't Bitcoin suck all the capital out of everything? Saylor's kind of like, yeah. Which, goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that, Bitcoin at $1 million creates a very strange world. But when people are like, well, it's terrible at 100, it's not terrible at 100. Watch out for the Bitcoin treasuries at 100. No. We're still in the imitator phase. The idiots are the big players that are sitting on their hands. Those are the idiots. That said, Bitcoin at $1 million, you're going to need your sidearm. That's going to be a wacky world. Stake ETH hits an all-time high. What do you know? Ethereum has an interest rate. They want to smack this thing. I just take it from them. Take it from them if they smack it. You know what I'm saying? Like anything short of like the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, and everybody in the Middle East all fighting all at once, take it from them. If it's a crash, it's a flash crash. That's what I think. Bitcoin update to raise data limit. Somebody was talking about the network effect on Bitcoin. In other words, everyone's like hash rate, adoption rate. Look, if enough people participate on the network, it's like social media. Enough people participate in the network starts to grow exponentially. Same is true with Bitcoin. It's a network. The more people participate, right? And if they put it on an iPhone, which again, I've been waiting for that for 2 years. Why am I buying hardware devices? Why am I buying all these things? I don't understand it. It's insane. You have biometrics on the Apple iPhone. Let's get some kind of hardware wallet where you can have like $50,000 worth of Bitcoin on there or whatever. $5,000 worth of Bitcoin. You can like walk around with it and like do something with it. If you can't, you can't get any help with AI, like talking to Siri. It's like, I don't know. It's like you get a better answer from a 3-year-old. So again, the network. JD Vance says Elon should behave. Yeah, he should. A lot of people losing their lives. They showed weakness. Treasury Secretary Bessent says crypto stablecoins lock in dollar dominance. Treasury Secretary Bessent's like, thank you. They blew off the first stablecoin bill. Bessent was furious. Now, what topped the market? Was it the evacuation of embassies? Maybe. Was it too much FOMO? Maybe. Was it Coinbase listing Fartcoin? Probably. Right? So Fartcoin does nothing but go up during the bear market. Obviously, some sort of algorithmic game there to ramp it up to $1 billion. I mean, yes, the AI that created it is right. Farting is a funny human meme going back to caveman times. I would imagine farting was still funny back then. Okay. So algos ramp it to $1 billion. Everyone thinks it's a blue chip. Coinbase lists it. Everyone buys it. Boom. We actually said, super chat from T-Bone. All right. Again, our members who have been here for 6 months with a super chat to say hello. Cheers to Bill and the Eagle King. Sir, thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you a lot. Coinbase listing Farcoin. Meanwhile, AI coins, which were doing well, if they dip, we'll go over the charts. BlackRock buys ETH 2 weeks straight. Look, especially if Stonks go down, like, again, my theory on this, Stonks go down if they get hurt on this geopolitical thing. That's a big if. But if they do, if they get hurt, that's going to make them want the Ethereum ETF even more. In some ways, you're cheering for like more confusion in Stonks. More confusion in Stonks is more clarity in Ethereum. Okay, Stripe acquiring Bitcoin wallet players. Okay. Credit ratings on Solana. Kind of like Poly Market for your credit worthiness. Cardano trying to do something positive. You know, for all you want to say about this guy, at least he's out there trying to make an announcement. To all these guys, the Cardanos, like where's Hedera? Where's Algorand? Why aren't these guys out on the tape? Do they have business development people? I actually emailed Brad Garlinghouse, like, hey, dude, let me help you. You know, let's get some news out there. Let's get some information out there. Why are all the media people like scraping the bottom of the barrel? Let's make an announcement. Let's do something. Do something. 18,000 ETH transferred to Coinbase Institutional. Yikes. Most likely, I think, going to get sucked up by BlackRock. Now, I am very happy with my idea that Ethereum should go to 4,100. I am not happy when every other technical analyst on the planet thinks the same thing. But there's a very clear head and shoulders bottom here. As this gentleman, Carter, notes, and the second all this negative music stops, you got a lot of blue sky here, right? It's like fear, unless it's a disaster, is your friend. And you know what? Honestly, if they actually go through with this, if this kid Fuentes is right and they actually do this, in my mind, that's the end of sovereign credibility. It's the end. Like, if they actually do this, you could have, say, bond markets crack. This is not something that Ray Dalio is telling you, right? If we do something this stupid, that could be your problem. That could be your oh my God moment. You know, they had an oh my God moment with away with it, right? I think central banks clearly bailed them out. Clearly. They do something so stupid that nobody can bail them out, or you have a parabolic in defense spending. Again, the big, beautiful bill, right? Hey, let's press the Americans because they can't afford to spend on defense. You show weakness, what do you get? Well, I'll give you an answer. You show weakness, what you get is you get your hands on as much of this as you can if they crack everything. If it goes down for a week, unless it's the end of the world, and you know what? I would even be willing to buy the end of the world because the end of the world for legacy is the beginning for crypto. Okay, so we have an idiot alert, GameStop, right? Going after 1.7 billion. What choice does GameStop has? And again, you know, somebody make me like operating officer for this company. I can't believe you could have brick and mortar Bitcoin. You could have people, old people walk in and there be a kiosk. Like they can bring the grandkids, they can buy a video game or a toy, and you can get help on Bitcoin, and everyone leaves with a t-shirt and a couple sats. You're going to raise all this money. You got all these brick and mortar locations with teenagers in there playing on their phone. They're empty. Okay, what if Ryan Cohn is just another moron? Let's hope not. This guy's actually pretty smart. And I don't have a problem buying Bitcoin at 100 because I don't think 100 means anything. I said that before, and so is Toby. 100 doesn't mean anything. It's a number, right? Yeah, it's one of the biggest assets in the world, but it's not really an asset. It's a monetary system. There is no price for a monetary system. There's no price for a monetary system. Crypto Crazy, another member with a $10 super chat. You know, folks, the best marketing that we have is that the people who are paying us pay us extra. So if you want to join in on that, please feel free to jump into Patreon Premium, which again is like an absolute revolution in GAN. I'm doing stuff with GAN that I thought I would, like next lifetime. I was going to have to get a Neuralink implant to do what I'm currently doing now with GAN. And then me and Toby on the YouTube member podcast, we're mixing it all together. I got her picks, and then I got GAN dates where we want to actually buy her picks, and the AI ranks her picks. That's tomorrow. So if we wake up in the morning and it's not the end of the world, right? It's not the second coming, the book of Revelations or whatever, then we're going to carry on. We're absolutely going to carry on. Now, I also talk to people about, nothing to change for now. It's a no trade zone. One of the things they said is follow a tactical trader. I mean, I can, of course, give you levels, but this is how traders think. Like for anybody who doesn't know, this is the thing that works in crypto, right? So what do traders want to do? They want to buy, if they want to see FOMO above 110, and then they want to see it fail, and then there's an inability to get back above the high, and then it goes down, right? Suck everybody in, drop it, fake out, boom. And of course, algos know this. The algos do this, algos do it. And then on the way down, the same guy would be like, okay, well, if it fell below 105 and then it came back and they tried to dip it again and they couldn't crack it, then it's going to explode. And that's how traders think. Now, these people get hurt when the market is a one-way train because they're always looking for some sort of false breakout or false breakdown and they don't get it. Now, in the current environment, perhaps you might get some of these false breakouts like maybe yesterday was. Bitcoin got to the premium zone. We'll go over the charts. But some guy or this type of thinking will help you locate the trade. It's a must in equities because they're so messed up, they don't have any choice. They have to try to do a tactical trade and hope it keeps going and works out. Good luck with that. They are getting chopped to bits. Ouch. So that's a little like suggestion. Now, if we move to TA, okay, so Bitcoin on the 4-hour chart, right? And again, I think bad news is good news. So Bitcoin's at the premium zone on the 4-hour chart. Bitcoin's at the premium zone on the daily chart. Bitcoin is not the best long right now. I can actually tell you exactly when Bitcoin is the best long. It's in the Patreon premium report that I just released. Period. Peaceful confidence, as my martial art teacher used to say back in the day. So Bitcoin gets to resistance. Bitcoin comes off. Bitcoin has LuxAlgo support at 106. We should be so lucky. We should be so lucky. Okay. Solana on a 4-hour chart. Now, as you can see, this is, I don't think I've seen this before. The pink is tight resistance. The yellow is good support. It's like Solana is pinned in there. And you know what the greatest thing would be in the world in Solana is if all this, whatever monkey business is going on politically, geopolitically, stonks, oil, if crypto just sat there. Right? The flash crash is juicy. Perhaps the tougher trade is to just have it sit there and make you worry. Markets climb the wall of worry. So Solana, again, all right. Meanwhile, it's going to break the 200-day moving average. It's just a question of how they do it. Right now, they're making it tough on you, right? This looked amazing before today. Amazing. Right? LuxAlgo buy signal. Break the 200-day moving average after trying to wick it down. Wow. I was like, yes. Now I have geopolitical smackdown today. Okay. Right? They're going to make it difficult. The more difficult they make it, the bigger the breakout. And the thing, again, the funny thing about XRP is that the news about XRP isn't, whatever little announcements they've scraped up and turned into news to keep people interested. It's the fact that XRP has been holding the 200-day exponential moving average this whole time. And it's at equilibrium. It's like, what's wrong with XRP? There's nothing wrong with XRP on charts, right? And, even though Cardano is not XRP or Bitcoin or Solana, one thing you have to ask yourself about coins like Cardano is, and we went through this 2 weeks ago, right? If something is at the 200-day moving average and it's just stuck there, but it's below it, but it's stuck there, what's going to happen when it goes through? In other words, one question we have not asked ourselves on the stream today, as we look at, say, this chart, is what happens if it's not the apocalypse, right? If everybody leaves the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and then goes on a 2-week vacation and then just comes back, then what's going to happen? Well, then you're going to have Katie bar the door is what's going to happen. Okay, Sol ETH from Steve J. Steve J doesn't have to ask about DeFi Perp after the Ave rally, right? Very powerful move in DeFi Perp, holding the 200-day moving average on the return move. Man, would I love to see this go. Listen, Toby's been telling you about DeFi for a year. For a year. This is happening. Okay, Sol ETH. Wow. Okay, so not something I look at every day. So a couple things to note about Solana versus Ethereum. One, it's close to its discount zone because Ethereum rallied 80% and Solana did nothing. Now, Solana has also done nothing for a very long time. And I'm kind of with, if I think I know what Steve's talking about here, I mean, you have some good bullish divergence here because, you got a new low in price without, a new low in the relative value of Solana and a higher low in stochastics. You do have two good LuxAlgo buy signals. Money flow not necessarily going your way. Solana, Ethereum, and XRP, the sleeping giants. Everyone's talking about stable coins, like stablecoin this. What networks do the stable coins run on? Stable coins just don't float through the air. Dollars run on Swift. What network do stable coins run on? I think it's Ethereum and Solana, and I think XRP itself is fast money. And no one's talking about that. I can't wait to start hearing about either Ripple's stablecoin business as something that should go public or should get taken over, or XRP as fast money, or any of these layer ones as stablecoin highways. Everyone thinks Solana is only about memes. And I think if there's a final puke in the value of Solana versus Ethereum, to answer Steve's question, you may be 1 or 2 trades away on this. Let's look at a 4-hour chart. Right? Again, it's at its discount zone. Solana versus Ethereum has not. Why would it go below the discount zone on a 4-hour chart, particularly when you have a downtrend of this magnitude? And let me just label this. In other words, it's time for Solana. And everyone thinks that Solana is memes only. I don't think so. Okay, so Cantor Fitzgerald in Stonks, crypto equities. Okay, so this is the 4-hour chart of Cantor Fitzgerald, right? So this is Howard Lutnick's company, and you're approaching the apex of a triangle. So here are the scenarios. This is what I've seen with this formation on LuxAlgo. I've seen this. I've seen that. That's like the trader fake out thing. Like whatever happens at the apex, that's what matters. I've seen a lot of weird stuff. In this particular case, again, that's possible. Okay. The final one, it doesn't matter, right? That's what I'm wondering. We'll see. I mean, this thing went from 16 to 64, and there's probably going to be a consolidation phase. Right? But this triangle is huge. The apex is on June 23rd. So that's the solstice. Right? That's the solstice. And frankly, I would expect the summer solstice, which is like the longest day of the year, another Gann thing. I would expect that to actually be very constructive. I think it's going to be very constructive. In other words, the chop that you're dealing with now, people by that time could possibly be discouraged. And then on the solstice, it's off to the races. Okay, circle. Okay, so an 89-minute chart maybe of Circle. How about a 45-minute chart of Circle? How about a 15-minute chart of Circle? Okay. All right. So this obviously gapped up dramatically. So this is almost like you have to do altcoin TA on this. Okay, so Circle. Now, to be honest, this would indicate extreme FOMO. This is the BlackRock footprint, right? A Cathie Wood too. Now, assuming Stonks don't get destroyed, these pennant formations in stocks are usually constructive. In crypto, they're not. In crypto, you get this. That's what you get in crypto. In Stonks, if it breaks out, they do have room to go to the premium zone. I'm going to be honest with you. Even though you can have volatility, when it comes to the valuation of crypto companies, I don't care what happens in the Middle East. You had Silicon Valley players FOMOing into AI last week like it was no tomorrow. So don't tell me Circle at 115 is expensive or whatever. I don't care. Because they don't care. I don't set the valuations. The market does. This is Galaxy's IPO, which is kind of funny because on a 15-minute chart, right, you got LuxAlgo buy signals everywhere, right? You got this, like that's the DeMark 13 bottom, the little X. You got this diagonal little line in what's called the oscillator matrix. And every time it wicks down, they're buying it. Again, it's a 15-minute chart. Okay. This is the new Galaxy IPO. And it's incredible. You know, I don't know if Mike did the right thing by getting out of Bitcoin mining, but whatever he had to do to make the stock work. To me, people want to own this near the discount zone. People want crypto equities. People in equities, like with this war thing, now they're really screwed up. Like now they're really reaching for the Pepto-Bismol over there. Maybe I got to get a bottle of that for the desk every time I talk about equities. Okay. Moonpig. The Eagle King is like, if we are not long Moonpig, what are we doing? You know, and there's all this coverage about this guy James Nguyen, right? He's talking way too much about being a Bitcoin levered long player because he's never going to forgive himself because he didn't read the Gann report. He didn't read the Gann report. If he had read the Gann report, he would have known when to go 40x levered Bitcoin. And so will you. Like, you got 2 months worth of research in there for $88. If you go to the Patreon store, I put some of them in the store at like anywhere from $60 to $75 per report. There's 8 reports in the Patreon Platinum area. And I got more. Like, don't think that's it. I got a lot more. So if you think you're about to get bearish, I would go in there. Right? Best $88 you ever spent. And it'll be the best $88 you ever spent next month too. Again, remember all these people super chatting. They're subscribing to both Patreon and YouTube. We have to do it in 2 different places for a reason. That and Toby hasn't been wrong about anything. And this Gann model, like I said, is a miracle. Gann software is like $4,000 a month. I'm doing stuff with a couple different chatbots and coming up with mind-boggling research that, like, every time the market goes down, I'm like, whatever. I can't believe this is not a buy. This is Moonpig Daily. Okay, if you go to Moonpig 4 hour, what I would do with this, what I would do with all of these type of coins is start going to Fibonacci speed resistance fan. Okay. And as you can see, these things are not an exact science. First, you have to figure out what time frame to look at. So let's try this again. As with all things Gann and Fib, interesting thing about Moonpig on a daily chart is that it happens to be breaking one of these lines in a sideways fashion. Okay. Now here it hit the line and failed. And one of the things I like to do with these type of structures is I just like to see, do we get a reaction? It's like, okay, here's an inflection point. That's nice. Do we get a reaction? And if it's not the end of the world, should you get after Moonpig? 18 million market cap. Peanut went to $1 billion. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is going to be a meme next go round. Why not? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I've been very much of a shoot your shot kind of a guy. And if they're going to give you a geopolitical event and it's not the end of the world, shoot your shot. Polygon. Polygon. Sorry. Let's try it again. All right. Now we can look at the chart, right? Nothing particularly interesting is happening here. Perhaps except for the fact that, you know, when it went down, it really rammed into the 62% retracement, okay, of this up move. I don't want to fade any ETH layer 2s. Now, when I was doing the Gann work, this is just like kind of like in the scrap pile. The one that kept coming up was Arbitrum. Now, I don't know if that was just like, you know, the machine's Gann vision. But these ETH layer 2s, like one of them is going to be huge. One of them is going to be huge. They're going to run real world assets on one of these things. You can't run everything on one layer one. You can't. They couldn't run Trump coin on Solana. I mean, they could, but Coinbase couldn't handle it, right? You're going to need networks. ETH has a network. You like Polygon? I'm not going to talk you out of it. Sometimes I think this stuff that's super depressed might be better. Okay. Now, obviously, there's headline risk. I took a little bit of a limb with the title and the thumbnail. Oil, right? If oil doesn't go to 80, or if evacuating embassies is more theater, you got yourself quite the buying opportunity in crypto. Any geopolitical event, barring something terrible happening, has always been an opportunity in crypto. Always. This situation, Eastern Europe, Strait of Hormuz, it's like you name it. Every time there's a fear trade, it turns around. Okay, that's the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow.